Every single person in this world has a story to share. Your story is your superpower, and it's unique to you. In sharing it with the world, you can impact millions of people. If you keep it to yourself, you are doing the world a disservice. This is Dela. I'm the host of Dela's Voice, and I help you share your superpower with the world.
Hello and welcome to another Dela's Voice Sunday live talk show. What is your spiritual purpose? This is the topic of today's show. And I will be bringing on in a few minutes a fantastic individual who has lived such a fabulous life of experience filled with amazing stories. She's going to come on here and she's going to tell us her story, her journey, and how she found her spiritual purpose. And I hope that in hearing this talk, you will be inclined to look for yours. Because after all, we all need to find out what our purpose is. And in knowing our purpose is when we can live joyful lives. Isn't that what we're always looking for? So I want to welcome all of you on here, and I want to please invite you to share this talk with other people, because you just never know whose life you might touch. And in sharing these stories is how we learn from one another. And this is how we can impact each other's lives. So go ahead and press that share button. My guest today is a celebrity author. I'm so excited to have her on here. I waited a long time for her to be on Dela's Voice. Janet Matthews. Janet Matthews is a writer. She's an editor. She is a professional speaker. She is a spiritual mentor. Janet has co-authored in some of Canadian bestsellers, and I will give you a rundown, but some of her books that I think most people know are, I'm going to start with this one because you all know this one, Chicken Soup for the Soul, for the Canadian Soul. And this one is Chicken Soup for the Soul, the Canadian Spirit. She told me, the Spirit of Canada. She told me, Dela, people get this wrong all the time. And I've practiced and I've practiced and I've practiced and I'm still getting it wrong. Again, Chicken Soup for the Canadian Soul and Chicken Soup for the Soul, Spirit of Canada. So I think everybody knows these two books. So in 1997, Jack Canfield invited Janet to co-author Chicken Soup for the Canadian Soul, which is this one. Okay. It took 4 years and 6,000 stories later, and this book came out, and it became a bestseller almost immediately. In 2013, Janet was invited again to co-author in another Chicken Soup book, and this one was O Canada, Wonders of Winter, this one. Okay, and this one again was a success. A year later is when she completed Chicken Soup for the Soul, Christmas in Canada. I don't have that one, which became a bestseller, and it stayed at the top of the bestseller list for 8 weeks. And then in 2017, just before Canada Day is when this book came out. And this was the book that was going to help celebrate Canada Day. So, Spirit of Canada, Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Spirit of Canada. Again, a Canadian bestseller. So, Janet has stories published in 10 Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And as an editor, she's helped other authors publish their books. And she's had her impact in the literary world for such a long time. And she has contributed to this tremendously. Janet is also a certified Heal Your Life, Achieve Your Dreams workshop leader, which is a training based on the philosophy of Louise Hay. Janet has been a guest on countless television and radio talk shows, and she's spoken to groups. And today, she's here on Dela's Voice, which is such a blessing to me. I'm truly humbled by her appearance on Dela's Voice, and I'm looking forward to hearing her story and having this conversation. It's truly a gift to have Janet Matthews on Dela's Voice. Please help me welcome this incredible Canadian author on the show. Hi, Janet.
Oh, hi, Dela. That was amazing. Thank you for that really beautiful, effusive introduction. People usually go through it faster than that.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Janet. And you saw that I got it wrong. You told me that people get it wrong all the time.
A heads up.
You did. And I practiced and I practiced. And I have it right here.
I know.
So I want to say this to you because you said it, people usually go through it really fast. To me, a bio, it's just a one-pager, and it takes years and years and years of someone's life to create this bio. So it needs to be read real slow.
And sweet. Hearing it reminds me, of what I have accomplished, because I'm sure, like so many other people, during this last year, you start to wonder, what is your life actually about? Because we're all so quiet now, right? We're all just at home and reflecting on ourselves. So to hear what I've done, it really helps. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sure as you're hearing it, it brings you back to the memories of how everything happened. And so I would love to go back to some of those memories and revisit them. And you can tell us how you got started in this journey. And I mean, Chicken Soup for the Soul is such a well-known series, and a lot of people have read. I know that when I first came to Canada, that was one of the first books I started reading because the stories were so simple and so short. And so for sure, these books have impacted millions of lives. And so, I mean, it's tremendous work. So I want to thank you for doing this work, first of all. But if I could ask you to please, share with us what it feels like to hear these stories. First of all, how did you go about getting these stories together? Where'd you find them, if you could?
You want to start there?
Yes.
Okay, so I have to start a little bit before that.
Do it.
In order to get to that.
Do it.
And so, you and I were talking the other day, and I shared with you that certainly people, and a lot of what I'll do is answer questions that people have asked me over the years. And they'll say, did you go to university to be a writer or an author? And the answer is no. I studied fashion design. And I had a fabulous career in fashion photography, producing fashion photography, not as a photographer, as a fashion photography producer in big catalog houses where we did work for Simpsons and Eaton's in the Bay and Sears and all of those big catalog and retail houses where I worked with models, and it was production. It was using my creativity that I learned in school as in studying fashion design, but also using my organizational skills, which are reasonably good, and learning production skills. And so I did that for 20 years and I loved it. I had a great time. We worked hard. We took great pictures. We had a lot of fun. We earned some money. And it was a great job for a young woman. And then one day I wasn't that young woman anymore. And it was really physically killing me. And a lot of the other girls that were doing the same job managed to carry on. But I had always struggled with chronic fatigue. And by the time I was 44, I was done. I couldn't climb it in and out of location trucks and run around for 10 hours a day. I just couldn't do it anymore. So I stopped, and I had no idea where I was going from there. But I'd had a number of dreams that told me for sure that this career was over and that I needed to let go of the identity of being a fashion stylist, but I had no idea what was coming next. So I had 3 years of sitting around really just, I think of it as, slogging through mud in no man's land, of not having no clue what I was going to do next. And then one day, my partner at the time, Raymond, he said, I've got these 2 books from Jack Canfield for Chicken Soup for the Soul. And, people have forgotten by now, but Chicken Soup for the Soul first came out in 1993. And people think it was an immediate success, but it wasn't. It took a year of really hard work on the part of Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen to bring that book up into visibility and make it a bestseller. It didn't happen overnight. They worked and worked and worked at it. So by the time I connected up with it in 1997, the brand was about 4 years old and flying high. Every book they did was a huge bestseller, would sell 1 million copies. So we were really excited to get involved with this. And Raymond said, you want to head up the chicken soup division of my company? Because I've got 2 books. And I went, yes. I never even thought about it. Because I knew I could do it. Now, I don't know how I knew I could do it, but I didn't even have a moment's anxiety. I was like, yes, I can do this. And what I didn't know at the time was it involved 2 skills that I already had. The first one was I'd always been a good writer, always, always, always. I just never knew what to do with my writing skills. And the second one was the production skills that I'd learned as a fashion stylist, because it turned out that producing one of these books was largely production skills, and I had them. So you want to know how we got the stories? I didn't, Raymond took me into his office area one day, and he said, okay, here's an empty office. You can use this. There's a computer on the desk. I'm sure you'll figure out how to turn it on. Remember, this is 24 years ago now, right? I'm sure you'll figure out how to turn it on. Oh, here's a book that came the other day, How to Write a Chicken Soup for the Soul book. Okay, off you go.
See you later.
And he left. And I'm standing there with this office with a computer. There wasn't even a filing cabinet in the room, but I didn't have anything to put in it anyway, right? So I read the book, and, fast forward, I learned how to solicit stories. And I had to create all of the literature from scratch, how to ask for chicken soup stories. But I had somebody come in and help me. I got an assistant, and she started putting ads in community newspapers. Now, remember, 24 years ago, the internet was barely there. We didn't have email Raymond had one email address for the whole office, and I didn't have my own email account. So everything was still being done by fax machine or by snail mail. So my assistant went every day, and she, created this solicitation for ads for stories, and she got addresses for community newspapers across Canada. The ones that sit on your coffee table for a whole week. And we gave up on all the big publications because they would come out and the next day be in the garbage. But the community newspapers, they sit around for a week, and they'll also have community service ads, CSA ads, that they'll put in for free. So that's what we did. And she sat there every day for 2 hours and sent out faxes all across Canada to community newspapers and asked for stories. And that's how we got started. And then the stories would come in by fax or they'd come in by regular snail mail. And that's what we did. And I was doing Chicken Soup for the Parents' Soul, which Raymond basically hired me to do it on his behalf. And I kind of started Chicken Soup for the Canadian Soul at the same time, but it was on the back burner. So, that's how we started, and it went from there. And then, because while we're working, the technology is moving along at leaps and bounds, right? Every week, every month, it's something different. Now we've got email. Now we've got individual emails for everybody through the office. Now we've got a website. Now, and it just kept going, and the learning curve for me. But being right and having to use all this technology every day with what I was doing. Like, it wasn't just sort of something over there that I could learn at night the way most people were doing. I had to use it as I was learning it every single day. It was very exciting, but it was also daunting. So we launched Chicken Soup for the Parents' Soul in 2000, and then I carried on with Canadian Soul for another 2 years, and we launched that in 2002.
What's really cool is that you get these, so you amass these stories, right? So stories come in from like 6,000 stories, like we read in your bio, and so they come in, but they're not actually like they're not stories that are written properly, right? So you're gonna have to like go through each story and not only decide which ones you want to pick, but there's like 100. How many stories in
101.
101.
And so the Chicken Soup book is 101 story. That's Jack Canfield's vision, and there's power in his vision.
There's power in his vision.
Yeah.
How so?
His vision was changing the world one story at a time. Mm-hmm. So he understood the power of story the way you do. And for whatever reason, all of the components of what Chicken Soup for the Soul is and was going to be came into him through his meditations. So if you want to say it was divinely given to him, I don't have a problem with that. Even the name of what to call, it was divinely given. And he became obsessed with it, which is, always a clue that you're doing what you're supposed to do when you can't do anything else, when you're doing it 24 hours a day. He began with collecting stories that were already written, because as a professional speaker, that's what speakers do, right? They look for stories to illustrate their points. As a motivational speaker, teaching people how to overcome obstacles or live your dreams or face adversity or, go out and make a difference in the world. Speakers who teach those principles, transformational thought leaders, they use stories to illustrate how it can happen. So he already had a collection of stories, which was what the first Chicken Soup book was about. And when he didn't have enough, he asked his fellow speakers to send him their stories, and he figured that 101 would be the right number. So that was his vision: 101 stories, changing the world one story at a time. And theoretically, all the stories are true. They're short. Each one has a message for the reader that the reader can take into their life, a gift, and be inspired by or uplifted by, and then use in their own life. And that's his vision.
They're always heart-warming stories. They're stories of inspiration and things that, you're right, there's a message in the stories for everyone. And it's almost like having an inspirational, motivational speaker, doing a presentation. And I love that about the stories. Always positive message in every single story. So here you are, have done fashion design. You go into this new line of work, and you find out, oh my gosh, I love this. I love doing this. And
I'm good at it. That was the surprise. I'm good at it.
Yes.
Right?
that you're good at it. What was the best part of that experience for you? And it went on for a long time.
Man, that's a really hard question. The best part? Well, there was a process of collecting stories. So let's just imagine a pile of stories on the desk that have come in either by email, or people have mailed them in, or someone in the office has found a magazine article with a story. So you read through the stories and you go, no, maybe. No, 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 no. Yes. So finding a yes was always a moment, right? No, 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 maybe. So you take the yeses and the maybes and you put them aside. And what I learned was that most people, when they tell their story, they don't know why they're telling it. Um, they don't know that there's a moment in the story that's going to go out and touch the reader. And they don't know what the moment is, but I do. When I read the story, I know right away whether this story has potential, whether it qualifies. And so my job would be to then go back through the story and think about, okay, can I fix this? How do I turn it into a chicken soup story? Frequently, I would call the author, which would just send them right over the edge. They'd be so excited. I mean, maybe that's a great thing, right? You know, in most jobs, you call up somebody on the other end, they don't want to talk to you, right? They're in a busy, they're in a mood. People would come running out of meetings, right? They'd say, you know, why do you want to talk to her? Because she's in a meeting. Oh, well, it's chicken soup for the soul. I want to talk to her about her story. Hang on.
Yes.
I got through to anybody with this. That was
Yeah.
very exciting. Anyway, I said, oh my God, you like my story? He said, we like your story. We're thinking about it. I want to talk to you about it. And then I would ask them a bunch of questions about the story. And if they were a serious writer, would have them rewrite it from perspective that I want. I could say, highlight this, leave this out, you know, expand this, shorten this, and rewrite it and send it back to me. And if they weren't a writer, and most people aren't, they just had an experience, I would talk to them and then rewrite it for them. So I go through this process until I had 30 stories that I thought qualified in some way. And then I would send my 30 stories out to 18 readers that I'd identified. Now remember, everything's still manual. So I'd make a little reader's manual, this big, 8.5 by 11, with a cover on it, and 30 stories in it, and I would physically mail it to 18 people all across Canada. Different ages, different sex, different genders, different ethnicities, different religious backgrounds, different social groups, and then they would get a criteria how to evaluate this story based on the criteria, and would be, does it open your heart? Does it give you goosebumps or tingles? Does it make you gasp? Does it bring you to tears? Does it inspire you beyond belief? Rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, and here's what each number means. So they would get the criteria, and they would get a grading sheet. So then, and the grading sheet would be stories down one side, and they would put their grades for each story. And then on a certain date, they would get those. They would fax them back. At that point, that was the only way. And then on a certain date, all these faxes would come in with these grading sheets. It was the best day, because I would have a master grid spreadsheet on my computer with all the stories, and then I would plug in all the grades down the side, and then I would sort them. Just sort on the grading column, and the top grades would come to the top, because it's an average grade out of 18 people, right? And all of a sudden, the top stories would rise, and you go, oh my God, those are my stories, right?
Oh.
And then you keep everything that grades 9 or above, and you let the others go away, and then you do it again. I did that 10 times. So read 6,000, considered 300, and then eventually, and then they go down to Jack Canfield's office, and they do the same thing. This isn't the process that's done anymore, by the way, I need to say. It's a much more precise, it's much faster. Mm-hmm. But this is how I learned to do it. And at that time, that was the most exciting thing, was when, and then eventually you got the whole book. You got 150 stories on a big, huge spreadsheet and 40 readers. And then you send it out to 40 readers, and then all those grades come back, and you plug in all 40 grades on your 150 stories, and then you sort on the average grade column, and there's your book at the top. It was unbelievable. It was an unbelievable experience. Very exciting.
So
that's combining using the editing skills, the listening skills, listening to people tell their stories, the intuition of there's a story or there's not a story, the editing skills, the talking skills, and then the production skills, which I could have all the others, but without the production skills, there still would be no book. So
this is incredible. So, so you've read how many? Would you say how many would you say you have read? How many
Well,
stories?
I have 4 books with my name on it. The 4 Canadian Chicken Soup for the Soul books. Chicken Soup for the Canadian Soul, Chicken Soup for the Soul, Oh Canada, the Wonders of Winter, Chicken Soup for the Soul, Christmas in Canada, and Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Spirit of Canada. There you go. There's the 4 titles.
Wow, you said that with no mistake.
Oh, well, I kind of know them, right? But I also have my name on Chicken Soup for the Parent Soul because I did produce that. I sort of ghost wrote that. I got paid to do that. So that was Chicken Soup University for me. I learned how. So 5 books. Probably between the last 3 books went much faster. The process is very different because everything's online now. All the soliciting's online. There's a major website. It's very different. So each of those books, I might have read. I doubt that I even read 1,000 stories for each of those books. So even if I did, that would be 3,000 plus 6.
Only.
Somewhere in the vicinity, probably between 10 and 15,000 stories over the years.
Oh my gosh.
And you learn stuff. You learn stuff about people when you do this.
Amazing, right? Amazing. And that's what's so exciting about this to me. And so I want to ask you, and I don't know if you can even answer this question, but was there ever a story that was like, okay, this is all the stories I've read, this is my all-time story, like
yeah,
ever?
Probably. Yeah. Don't ask me to tell it. But when I was on that thing a few weeks ago with Brian and I told the Marilyn Bell story, that's really the one. Marilyn Bell, when I had to interview her to get her story because for Canadian Soul I had a mandate to find high-profile contributors. And that's a challenge because you can't ask them to write their story. They're too busy. You'll have to phone them and get the story. So I interviewed her and recorded it and ghost wrote it. And that, and she talked for 2.5 hours. It's one of the most exciting things I've ever done was the 2.5 hours I spent on the phone with Marilyn Bell. And then I had to take that 19,000 word transcript and get it down to a story that could go in a Chicken Soup book, which was a lot of work. But she changed my life. She really did, because her message, most people think it's a story about crossing a lake, and of course it is. It's a story about swimming across a lake. But it's also about overcoming obstacles and living a dream. And in her world these days, many years after the fact, it really was about making a difference in the lives of others, because for her, this overcoming that she did became the inspiration to millions of people. And they would stop her on the street and say, Marilyn, you changed my life. I was going to commit suicide, and I thought if you could get across the lake, I could get through what I have to get through. And they'd stop her on airplanes and on the street and say, Marilyn, I was with you. I swam with you that day. And we didn't have dinner that night because my mother wouldn't leave the radio. We were all listening to how you swam across the lake, and we had baked beans on toast, and we prayed for you. And these were the stories that told her what her experience had to contribute to life. Because when she heard how people had been so changed by her experience, she realized that was actually her gift, was that how people's lives had been changed by what she did became what the experience was about. And so that's what Chicken Soup for the Soul stories are about. And exactly what you said at the beginning is that when you share your stories about overcoming obstacles or living your dreams or facing adversity or love or kindness or working together in a community or making a difference in the world, when we share our stories, we actually contribute to the pool of wisdom on the planet, and other people can benefit from them. Yes. And so for me, being able to put together and be the vehicle by which these books came into existence has been, an extraordinary honor. I've loved every minute of it and felt very honored, because you realize the books have a bigger purpose. It's not just me and my ego. Hey, I'm a best-selling author. No, it's about these books have a mission. These books are going to make a contribution to humanity in much the way that when we learn about tribal societies and how they used to tell stories around the campfire at night, They would finish their meal in the tribe, tribal living, community living, and then what are you going to do? It's dark, right? So they light the campfire, and everybody gathers around, of all ages. The elders, right down to the small children, are all around the campfire, and they told stories. And they shared their stories of the great hunt and the great war and the great warriors and the great famine and the great move. And they shared all these stories and in this way, and they passed them from generation to generation. The elders told them, and they passed down, and the children heard them, and then eventually the children were the elders, and they shared the same stories. And that is how these people knew who they were. They had absolute crystal clear understanding of who they were and their identity within their community, in their relationship with the Creator, in the relationship with the world around them. They had no doubts. They knew exactly who they were. So when we come into the modern world and we don't have those things, our communities are all fragmented and broken up, and people come from all over the world and end up in one place together, and families are separated, and television and video. People don't know who they are anymore. So one of the things that I came to understand by writing this book, Chicken Soup for the Canadian Soul, and the ones that followed, in a way, they're tribal stories of who we are as Canadians. When we talk about how some of our greatest Canadian heroes, like in the first book, Terry Fox, Marilyn Bell, Paul Henderson, these are our tribal stories, our great heroes and our great stories. And when we read them, we're inspired by them, and they remind us who we are and where we come from and how we and the world that we live in. So that's what I came to understand.
Thank you. One of our viewers says, I can see she's extremely passionate about this. And yeah. Yes, yes.
I want to say it consumed my life. From 97 to 2003, it consumed my life. And a lot of very challenging things happened in addition during those years. So when I got to January of 2003, I kind of went, oh, because after the book launched in September 2002, they sent me on a Canadian book tour for 14 cities, so that I was doing radio shows and talking to people like this, and TV interviews and lots of print interviews and going in front of groups and promoting. And I did that for up until Christmas, and then Christmas came, and then January came, and I kind of went, now what? January of 2003, right? And I kind of folded in on myself at that point, and then I had to rise up and think, what do we do now, right? So that's when I started editing books for other people. They would come to me and say, well, I've written this book, and I thought, well, I can't edit fiction any more than I can write fiction. So I said, well, your book has to be about personal spiritual growth. It has to be something that humanity can benefit from, that will help people live better lives in some way. A body of knowledge, spiritual insight, wisdom, what you teach your groups, that kind of thing. And those are the books that I've edited. So I've edited books for people who, again, are not writers. They're doctors, they're psychiatrists, they're trance mediums, they're Indian mystics, they're musicians, very, very fascinating. And behind me there, that's my
body of your work.
Body of work up there. There's about 22 books that I've edited now, including.
So this editing work, I mean, that's again, you're helping bring out the best stories, again, like in the best possible way. So you go into this world of bringing out stories. Did you think during that time, did it occur to you that this is your purpose in life when you were doing that work?
It's really interesting that you asked the question, because it was somewhere during this time that I came to an understanding of what the idea of purpose is. Because most people who wonder about what I call the big questions, where did I come from? Why am I here? Where am I going? What's my purpose, right? And they use the word my mission or my purpose interchangeably. And I have a very
guilty.
Yeah. I have a very specific spiritual path that I follow that I've been on for 40 years, which has shaped a lot of my perspective around this. And it involves a spiritual practice of meditation and connecting in. And when you do that over a long period of time, you change because you do connect in, and there are insights that come, and there is wisdom that's given. And so I was doing a workshop for this group. I don't really even know how long ago it was. I can't even tell you whether it was 15 years or 20 years or longer. I don't know. Anyway, I had come up with this perspective on purpose and mission. And in this spiritual group, there was the words were also used interchangeably. So they asked me to do a workshop, and I put up a big piece of paper on the pad that's hanging on a what are those things called?
A flip chart?
Flip chart, that's it. And I divided it down the middle, black line down the middle and a line across the top. And I just asked people in the group, there was probably 30 people in the room. I said, why are you here? What's your purpose? And someone would say to learn about love. So I'd write it down on one side or the other. And someone else would say to be of service. So I'd write it down on one side or the other. And someone else would say, to work off my karma. I'd write it down. And someone else would say to be a co-worker with God, and I'd write it down. I kept on until both sides of the page had 5, 8 things in it. I said, and somebody said, why are you writing them on opposite sides of the page? I said, that's the question, isn't it? Can anybody tell me why half of the things are on this side and half of them are on this side? Can anybody tell me what the difference is? And no one could, which really blew me away. And I said, so here's the thing. The ones on the left side are what I came here to learn. And then the ones on the right side are what I came here to give. And it's like two sides of a coin. It's not one or the other, it's both. And what I've learned is, through the process of writing these Chicken Soup for the Soul books, is that when you're very focused in one, you will automatically do the other. So I just arbitrarily have named them, and it's me, that what I came here to live is what I came here to learn is my spiritual purpose, and what I came here to give is my spiritual mission. And in that way, you can start to talk knowledgeably and intuitively about what you're doing. So here's the example. This is when I realized it. While I was going through that first book, which is Chicken Soup for the Parent Soul, and reading hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories, when you ask people as parents to write about a story that would qualify to go in Chicken Soup for the Parent Soul and their parents, they're going to write you a story that it's about the most emotional, most intense experience they've had as a parent. Most times, not always, but most times. So what I ended up doing was reading a lot of stories from parents whose children had died. Because as a parent, that is the most extreme, emotional, heartbreaking, heartrending experience a parent can have. So I read a lot of these stories. I also read other stories about parenting. And I came to see that through this process of yes, no, 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 yes, that there was this massive big group of stories that was coming in like this and to a funnel. And I was the funnel. That they were coming through me. And then they would go back out, the ones that were left, into the book, out into the world. But in that funnel was a very intense place where every single story had to be read, every person who wrote had to be acknowledged, parents who'd written about this incredibly difficult experience had to be honored. And we had little postcards that were, blue or yellow, and, blue meant one thing and yellow meant the other thing, right? Thank you for your story, always started. And for the ones who'd lost somebody, I would write a handwritten note on it. Thank you for sharing this deep story from your heart. So that, even though I was getting 6,000 stories, each of these people got a handwritten note. And that meant that I had to process their story inside of me. And I had to acknowledge and honor it in this funnel before we finished. And then the book went out with the chosen stories.
Woo.
So there's the service, right? There's the service, but in this funnel came the most intense learning, I can tell you, because it brought up all of my own stuff, all of my own issues around my own life. And and there it is, two sides of the coin. What did I come here to learn? Well, we all have to face our issues, right? Our grief, our sadness, our anger, our fear, our guilt, our shame. We need to face those things and heal those things. And as we do it, or maybe while we're giving our service in our mission, will offer us an opportunity to do it. But when we become consciously aware of both things, then you can really actively become aware of what you're doing moment to moment. What am I doing now? What am I learning? How am I serving? How can I learn more from this situation? What is it I have to give in this situation?
I love that.
And that's what we're here to do.
Thank you. So in essence, if I understand it, for me, purpose is for me. Mission is what I can give to the world.
What did I come here to learn, or develop, or heal, or fix, or unload, or unburden, or resolve? What did I come here to learn, and what did I come here to give?
To give.
In service. And it can be really huge, like, you know, being the president of a nonprofit organization, which is pretty big, or it can be really small, like holding the door open for that elderly person who's struggling. It's service. It's recognizing that you're not the only one here.
Yes.
You know.
Yes. Wow. Thank you for that clarification. I'm never going to look at those two words the same.
Exactly.
Thank you.
I had an individual in my, just checking the time here. I had an individual in my life. He was, I also invest in real estate.
You do? That part I didn't know about you, Janet. I didn't know that.
A lot of years, done a lot of things. And my, one of my early mentors, he was an interesting, I don't want to give too much away about him, but, you know, he had moved on. He left his wife. He went away. I didn't really know these things because I wasn't really in touch with him. One day I get this phone call from Hawaii, and he says he had an interesting accent. He said, "Janet, I don't know why I'm here. I left my wife. I moved to Hawaii. I'm meditating all day long. I'm a vegetarian. I'm eating organically. I'm trying to discover, why am I here?" I said, well, I usually use his name when I tell this story, but I won't. I'll just say, you need to ask yourself two questions. What did you come here to learn? And he said, well, I need to learn about blah, 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 blah. And I said, and what did you come here to give? And he went, oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. I said, they're the same thing. It's two sides of the same coin. When you don't know why you're here, what are you doing here on this planet, in this life you're living? Stop. Ask yourself these questions. What did I come here to learn, and what did I come here to give? Now, in these things will be your passions, right? You can't give from an area in which you have no passion, from which you have no skill or no ability. So I used to do a workshop on finding your spiritual purpose, and it began with helping people to, you know, write down, what do you love? What do you love doing? You know, it doesn't have to be what you're earning. What do you love doing? Well, for me, I love music. I love playing my violin. I love paddling my canoe. I love being up in Northern Ontario. You know, I love roller skating. And these are the things you write down. These are the things you love, right? And maybe you want to make another list of your unique skills and abilities. What skills and abilities do you have that are unique? Maybe you're a great cook. Maybe you're a great gardener. Maybe you passionately love gardening and you're a great gardener, right? They're not necessarily the same, but and you make a list of these things that you're passionate about, things that you love to do that make you happy, and particular skills and abilities that you have. And you need to identify them, and you won't be able to identify these things all at the same time. It's an ongoing list. You start the list, and you do your best, and then you add to it. The first time I did this list, I forgot music, and the reason was because I'd stopped doing music. I hadn't done it for so many years. I had forgotten how much joy being in an orchestra brings me, and I forgot to put it on the list. So, you know, people will always say, "Well, do what you love." A lot of people don't know what they love. They don't even know how to answer the question because their life has been so filled with things they're supposed to do, right? The things that they have to do, the obligations of earning enough money to put food on the table or pay the rent or the mortgage or keep the car on the road to get the kids to school. You know, people are so exhausted that they don't even know what they love. So how can you possibly find your purpose or your mission when you don't even know what you love? So the first step is to make a list of the things that you love, that you have passion for, and the unique skills and abilities that you've developed over the years, no matter what they are. And as this process begins, you start looking at your life, and this is a whole other process that, you know, people better at it than I do teach programs in, you know, focusing in on these things and finding ways to start expressing them. And that involves goal setting and prioritizing and and there are many teachers who teach that stuff. I don't teach that stuff. I know that stuff, but I don't teach it. Yeah.
I mean, oh my gosh. Okay, so I know that there are people watching right now who are so happy about hearing you say those words, because I know a lot of people who live in that place of, well, I don't know what I love anymore. I
don't know what I love anymore. Yeah. Life is too complicated. I'm so squashed and burdened and overwhelmed and overcome that I don't even know what I love anymore.
Yes. And so you suggest just write it down and start writing.
Go back to your childhood. Go back to your childhood and your teenage years and remember the things that made you happy. Yeah. Whether you went across the road and down into the stream and you know, like I did, I dug clay out of the stream bank and sat on a wall and made models. That's one of the things I wrote down. You know, I loved, you know, I had the great blessing of going to a cottage every year when I was a child, and I loved being at the cottage. I loved being out in the rowboat. I loved looking over the side of the boat into the water at the golden sand and the little grass and the fish swimming between them. You know, when I think about that moment, I can connect into that place of simplicity. You know, there's wisdom in a lot of spiritual teachings that until you become as a little child, you can't find the kingdom of heaven. Well, what does that mean, right? What does that mean? Well, I had an experience one day that showed me exactly what it means, because when you're a child, you find delight in small things. You're down on your hands and knees in the mud with a stick scraping around, and you see a bug crawling around, and it consumes your attention. You become fascinated with the bug. And for me, it was looking over the edge of the boat, and there was golden sand on the bottom that was rippling, and there were little green grasses and little fish swimming between them, and I was mesmerized. Sunlight coming down, I was by myself, and in that moment is magic, right? You connect into the pure essence of what you are. So there was a moment when I was an adult, I don't know, I'd come through a very difficult experience, and I was up north with a group, and we were paddling, and we came into this shallow water, and there was a guy in the canoe with me that I didn't know, and I was in the front of the canoe, and we came into this shallow water, and the breeze dropped, and I looked over the side, and there was the golden sand with the grass and the fish, and I went, and it hit me in that moment. I had that experience of remembering that pure delight and connectedness of being a child. And this is what we have to do if we're going to find our passion and the things that we love, and is you have to rediscover that. Yes. So take some time, remember what you did as a child that brought you delight. I know some people have childhoods that were very difficult, and so that may not be part of your process. It may be finding ways to discover it now. But it is in the simple things, I can tell you. It's in the backyard when the lilacs bloom. It's looking out when the rabbit hops across your lawn. It's getting up in the morning and listening to the red-winged blackbirds sing. That's where this is, and whatever activities you enjoyed, you need to find activities as an adult that can reconnect you to that place. Otherwise, you're just living out somebody else's vision for your life, and what point is there in that?
Yeah. And yes, yes. As you're talking, I remember following little ants and how they follow one another to the ant hill, and like that was,
Mhm.
I was fascinated by that, and I was thinking about that. I was like, when was the last time you did that? Like, when was the last time I
Yeah,
actually sat down and spent some time really doing that? Because I could do that for a long time,
yeah,
and that brought me so much joy. So
yeah.
it is in the simple things, Janet. You're so right. You have uh, so you have had training in the philosophy of Louise Hay, and
Yeah.
you do these workshops.
I used to. I don't want to. I never wanted to run a workshop business because it's really difficult. And
Mhm,
anybody who does, bless you, it's not for me.
mhm,
I do a lot of things really well, but I don't
mhm,
want to run a workshop
mhm.
business. But
But
I
what
do
was the
do Dela. I do one-on-one phone consultation.
Okay, okay. So you do that still, and I want to make sure that if anyone wants to, you know, reach out to you, I want to make sure that they have the proper information. So I've put on here Canadian Chicken Soup on Facebook. That's
Yeah,
where they can reach you. They can send you a message on there if they want to do a
yes.
one-on-one consultation with you. So, what is the philosophy of Louise Hay? If you could just give us just a little bit of that in a few
Respecting my
minutes.
time. Okay. Well, when you start to do personal growth work, or people go to a therapist to find out why they're not happy or why they're struggling, they'll go through this big long process, and the therapist will ask them a billion questions. Louise Hay used to do that too. And people would come in with this, that, and the other thing, and she'd say, okay, please tell me why you don't love yourself, and the pain about your parents not loving you. And they'd go, what? I didn't come here to talk about that. And she said, oh, but that's at the bottom of everything. She said, we can go through all this stuff across the top, and then we'll get down to here, and then we'll get down to here, and then we'll get down to here. And when we eventually get to the bottom, we'll find that it's lack of self-love, lack of self-worth, and the struggles you have with your parents. So why don't we just skip all this other stuff and go straight there?
Get there.
So what Louise Hay teaches is that fundamentally, in order to live happy, fulfilled lives and meet our potential, you have to learn to love yourself, and to forgive all those people that have, harmed you or hurt you or wronged you in some way, and to let it go, and to love yourself. She has certain techniques that she offers, but I would offer this one in my journey as a spiritual being on my spiritual path, to recognize that you are actually a divine being. And if you have a concept of a God of your own understanding, whatever background you have, and you have a love for that divine presence and how it works in your life, to recognize that you are part of that you are an aspect of it. And that if you are an aspect of it, you have to love yourself as that. So when you look in the mirror and you see all the things you don't love about yourself, to let that go, and instead to feel that child that likes the bugs in the sand or the fish in the water, which is, that's the divine part of you talking to you. You're experiencing that divinity in that moment, not caught up with the world. That when you can connect into that part of yourself and know for sure that that's what you are, find love for yourself as that. And when you do, your entire life will change. That any other goal that you might have, Any other thing that you've ever aspired towards will become possible if you can just recognize yourself as a divine being and find the love for yourself as that. Everything becomes possible.
Wow. Wow. and you yourself have experienced this.
I have.
Yes. And so people are saying, I love this Janet.
Well, it took a long time, Dela. This doesn't happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that when I was younger, I actually loathed myself. And many of us do, and we don't know why. And there's a million reasons why. There is a very deep, intense personal growth process called the Hoffman Quadrinity process.
Yes, you spoke.
Which deals with family of origin and inner child and the wounded child. And it's very intense. You go on a Friday, you don't come home till the following Friday. You're there. You're in a retreat. You put your phone away and you're in process for a full week of facing these issues within yourself and learning about yourself. Well, I did it the first time and came home full of awarenesses and realizations. And then that was in 1997, just before I started Chicken Soup for the Soul. So I brought that with me, Chicken Soup for the Soul, those insights. But then something happened in my life where I thought, if I don't do this again, I'm dangerous to myself or someone else. And I went in and I did it again. So I have the benefit of 2 of these Hoffman Quadrinity processes under my belt. 1 is enough, but I did it twice. And in that place, I was able to unload the self-loathing and heal it, and eventually rose into a place, and I made learning to love myself became my top spiritual goal, was learning to love myself as a divine being. And I remember the moment I was sitting on a dock. I used to live at a place on a lake on a beautiful July morning. It was in 2004, and it washed over me in a wave, and I went, oh my God, I did it. Now, do you get to hang on to it? No. But in that, because these things, these spiritual experiences, they're illuminating, they're uplifting, and they pass. They may last for a few hours or a few days. I had one that lasted for a few months, and then they pass. You move back into your life again. But I remember this one in 2004 where I was sitting there with these waves of self-love washing over me. I finally connected into it after all those years of hard work. I started in 1982, and then I did my Hoffman process in 1997. So it was 2004 where, I finally achieved some level of what I'd been looking for. And then after that, many other things started to happen. Because from that place of love for yourself as a divine being, everything is possible. Everything else is possible.
What a place to be, Janet. I mean, to be able to say that, to be able to say, I truly, and deep down from my soul, I truly, truly, truly love myself. I mean, to be able to say that, Janet.
Well, what it frees you up from is everybody else's opinion of you.
Yes.
Right? When you spend your life trying to get that external validation that you're okay from the people around you. If you're a woman, from the latest man that you're with. Am I good enough? Am I pretty enough? Am I sexy enough? Is my hair good enough? Is he going to like me? What if he doesn't like me? Then I'm not good enough. All this external validation that we look for from our parents, from our teachers, from our spouse, from the people around us. And when you step into that place where you can truly know that you're a divine being and love yourself as that, the need for that other stuff goes away. Now, you may still want it because we're here in the human condition, and we're here having a human experience, and we're in a social world. So we do want people to like us, and we do want to be, but you get permission then to be your authentic self. And then you realize that the people that are going to come to you now are going to be people who like you in your authentic self.
Yes.
And you don't need to put on some kind of performance, the way we're raised to as women, especially.
Yes.
I'm sure guys do as well. But we're raised to try and meet certain expectations and standards in order for us to be acceptable human beings, and that people will like us. And when you can get yourself free of that, and just be your authentic self, You don't want to offend people. If you're a man, you're still going to shave, and if you're a woman, you're still going to shave your legs and under your armpits, probably, if those are your standards, right? You don't want to offend people, but there's no need for this constant angst.
Oh, thank you. Ziba says, I can listen to her for hours. And so can I. So can I. Oh, you're so awesome. So that
your questions were good. Your questions were good, Dela. As I told you, I'm not writing a new talk. It'll all depend on your questions.
Oh my gosh, I hardly did anything here. I just sat here and you did all the talking. Oh my God, Janet, you are awesome. So you gave us so much today, so much today. And I want to remind the name of that week-long workshop you did was called Hoffman
Quadrinity process, yes.
process.
And there's the Hoffman Institute Canada.
Okay.
And I'm not sure where they do it now. I think I doubt that they're doing it right now at all. But I think it's out. I think it's in Alberta. The last time I looked, but I could be wrong. It used to be done in several places. It's changed. It was a long time ago.
Yeah. So if anyone's interested, you can Google that. Marianne says, such a soothing voice and a great energy you have, Janet.
Who knew?
Oh, come on. You're awesome. Thank you so much for giving me your time. I know you don't do this for just anybody, so I feel truly special.
No, somebody asks. You remember what I said? The parameters were: I don't have to leave my house. I don't have to write a talk. And you'll ask me good questions. That's not so hard.
So you want to buy these books? They're available on Amazon.ca and .com, and anywhere you can get books from online, so you can get them. And they're awesome little stories.
Can I have one more thing to add to people? I live in Aurora, Ontario. I don't know where your audience is. But here in Aurora, Ontario, I have a little house, and in the basement I have a small inventory of all those titles. And if you want to drive to my house, I will happily go down the basement and get them out for you. And each book has a sticker on the cover that says signed by the author. Dela got hers a few weeks ago. And I will write something in it. Yeah, I will write something in it that's personal for you or whoever you want to give it to as a gift, and sign it, of course. And they do make great gifts. And Dela, you're going to have to help me with the math because I can't remember. I haven't looked at it for so long. But one book is $20, and that includes the sticker and the signature and the writing and all the taxes and everything. It's just a $20 bill for a book. Makes it easy. And 2 books is
38 or 35.
30. I think it was.
It's. I just remember it's a good deal when you buy the 4 of them together. It's like super.
3. Yeah, 3. When you buy the 3 of them,
3.
Together, it goes down exponentially. So you start off with one book is $20, and then it goes down to like $18 for each book when you buy 2, and then down like that. So it's a good deal. So if you want to get 3 books or more, and you know what, when I got to tell you, when I used to do a lot of speaking engagements, especially when I would have older people in the room, they would come up and they'd say, what's your bulk discount rate? I'd go, what? Well, I have 7 grandchildren. I want to get one for each of them. Oh. So I do. If you want to buy a bunch of them, we'll find a good price. I can't remember what it was I used to do, so I'm not going to say it right now because then you'll hold me to it. But it's a good price.
Okay, so
I 10 and the 11th book is, I don't know.
They're awesome. They're awesome.
They do make fabulous gifts.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, it's personal. It's going to have a personal message in it from me to whoever you give it to as a gift. Then it's great for students because, I'll write something inspirational like, Dear Jessica, may these stories inspire you to always follow your dreams, something like that. But you tell me who it's for, and I write something personal. So it's only $20. It's personal. It's not going to go in the garbage. They're not going to eat it. They're not going to wear it out. They're not going to grow out of it. It'll be on their shelf for the rest of their lives. So that's why it makes a great gift.
Yeah, it's awesome. So thank you. Yes. So you can reach Janet on the Canadian Chicken Soup on Facebook. Follow her, send her a message there, and get a hold of her genius.
And if that's a struggle, like just get in touch with Dela, and she'll give you my email address. But I'm not, or even my phone number. But I'm just not gonna give it out over here.
Yeah, and yeah, it'll just cost you a little bit. It won't. It won't. I'll get you in touch with Janet. So Janet, thank you so much. I want to give you a couple of more minutes to. I mean, you've given us so much today, but I want to give you 2 more minutes.
Okay, what do you want to know?
Just leave us with some more amazing words on finding your spiritual purpose.
So, I told you a little story the other day, which I love, and it had to do with what happened when I finished high school and I didn't know what direction to take. Do you remember that? Shall I tell that? Okay.
Do it.
So I'm one of these people that I have interest in a lot of things, and I have moderate to good skills in a lot of things. But as a teenager, I didn't excel like big time. Not like my friend Ron, who was obviously always going to be a concert pianist, right? I didn't know. So I got to the end of high school, and I thought, well, I can go out and get an English degree and get a BA at university because I'm good at English and I'm a good writer and I love books. That would be not hard. But I really love sewing and I love clothing, and maybe I should go and take a degree in fashion design at Ryerson. Or I really love photography, so I could go to Ryerson and study photography. Or I could, keep going with my violin because I've been playing since I was 11, and go to university and study music with my violin. So I considered each of them and eliminated 3 of them for various different reasons, and I chose fashion design, which I've never regretted. I came out with a degree in fashion design, and I'm an extremely skilled seamstress. I can design things. I can fit things. I'm a couturier seamstress. I'm good. That's the skill that got developed to the nth degree. But I came out and I didn't want to be a designer. I realized I wasn't prolific enough. I'm not a good enough artist. And so I ended up producing fashion photography, which I loved. It was right in the middle. It wasn't retail. It wasn't this. And while I was producing fashion photography and working with Canada's best fashion photographers, there I was in photography. And so I absorbed as much photography in as I wanted to, just by being in that environment. And I thought to myself, wow, I got the photography anyway. I got to do 2 for 1, right? Thank God I didn't choose photography. There was always that English degree, hanging out there. And music, like I said, I even forgot that I loved music because I had left it for so long. So then when I got invited to do the Chicken Soup books, I started to pull up these old skills with writing. And I was aware of it, and then it turned out that I'm a very good editor, and that was something I had no idea of. That's in a specific kind of editing that it turns out I'm really good at, but I didn't know. So there I am developing these skills with English and writing and editing on the job. So I got to do that, and then when I was 60 or 61, I can't remember. I guess it was 60. And I had a change happen in my life, and I was looking for an activity, and a girlfriend said, well, there's this community orchestra run by a woman named Risa. My girlfriend plays her cello. She really loves it. And I went, oh, I'm going to try that. So I got in touch with that group. I went and joined this string orchestra. And it was about 6 months. And I realized I was improving. I'd gone back to my level of high school. It took me about a year that I graduated with, and my violin playing started to improve. I got up to that point and started to move past it. And there was a moment in time where I went, oh my God, I did them all. My first choice was fashion design. I've never regretted it. I got the photography, absorbed it in through the skin. I ended up in writing and editing and books and English anyway. And now I'm doing music. And there was a moment in time where I went, oh my God, I did it anyway. And I'd had this, even though I'd had this, fell into self-love in 2004, like I said, it can be momentary, it can come and go. I'd still frequently had feelings that I'm sure a lot of people have. I'm a failure as a human being. I could look around at all the things that I hadn't done. I don't have any children. I don't have a family, blah, blah, blah. I never did this. My house is always a mess. I'm a crummy housekeeper, list it off, right? All the things that we're crappy at and I failed at. And on this day, when I looked at this list and I said, Janet, you did all four of the things that you'd had in your heart that you thought that you might pursue, you did them all. My whole perspective on myself changed. My whole sense of what I achieved in my life changed. Now, this is a later life perspective, right? You're not going to get this perspective at age 30. This is past 60. And I'm now able to sit down and look at, instead of all the things that I can't do, which is I suck at housekeeping, that's just the way it is. I can list off all these interesting things that I've done and that I'm good at.
Yeah.
Instead, that's what I do instead.
Yes. Yes. Great message there, because we do all do that.
Yeah.
So instead of looking at what we can't do or what we didn't accomplish, look at
That's
what
right.
we did accomplish.
Which we have done, yeah.
Yes. Yes. Amazing. Well, you're awesome, Janet. Whether you're a good housekeeper or not a good housekeeper, I don't really. Yeah, me too. I tell you. Me too. Me too. But thank you so very much. I want to thank every single one of our viewers for being here and leaving us messages. Everybody who was on here has sent you love, and they love you, Janet. Everybody
Thank
loves
you, Dela, and thank you everybody for taking the time to listen today. I feel better. This is a gray, rainy day in Ontario, and it's a bit grim and gloomy, and I feel better now.
Yes. So thank you again for giving us your time. I truly appreciate you and your words of wisdom, and
You're welcome.
just know that, please, that you are a blessing in my life. And I don't know what I did, I don't know how I did it, but you are a part of my life, and I'm so blessed for it. Thank you.
Well, Dela, I look forward to hanging out with you again, and hopefully soon without masks. It will be great.
Because I want to hug.
Hugs, and if anybody wants a book, or 2 books, or 3 books,
or 3 books.
I got them.
Yeah. Yes. And you know where to find Janet on this Facebook page, Canadian Chicken Soup, on Facebook, and give her a message, or send us a message, or leave your message here right under this post, and I will make sure to connect you. So everybody, have a blessed Sunday. Janet, do you mind staying so that we can have a brief chat afterwards?
I won't go away.
Okay, all right, perfect. And I want to leave everybody wishing you a very, very happy rest of your Sunday. Thank you again for being here with us for the past hour. I hope you got as much from this talk as I did. And as always, this has been Dela's voice, sparking your soul. Until next time, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.